says fetching stream. Okay, howdy everybody, and by everybody, there's probably like one or two people just popping in here, but we're live on the Where to Hunt podcast. It's Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're ready to get at this. Before we get into the show, I do want to call out our title sponsor, the company that literally provides energy to make this happen. I got it right here in my nice little mug. Of course, I bulletproofed it, but in any event, if you head over to backwoodsgrind.com, take a look at their coffee blends, browse a little bit. I like the Camp House the best, probably. The Sunrise is good. The Fireside is also good. They're all pretty good. I'm just kind of, it's subjective for me. But if you want 10% off to give it a try, I think that's a good way to start. And you can enter in the code W, the number 2, the letter H, and then podcast. That'll get you 10% off. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our guest. I'm going to try really hard. I know, Zach, that I tried to not mess up your name, but guest Zach, nope, dude, I'm totally going to do it. Hoheisel? Nope, that's not right.
Hoheisel. Almost got it.
I told you that was going to happen, dude. I'm so bad. Like, my brain just says, nope, I can't. I don't know why. But you're with Growing Wild TV. Thanks for being on the show today, man. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. I've had it easy. Like the last 10 guests have all had like really easy last names, like Smith or something, and it's been a while since I've had a curveball like yours. I was like looking at it and going, oh no. But well, how you doing, man? How's your week going so far?
I'm doing great. Just plugging away, working during the day, and now I'm happy to be talking hunting with some people. I always like an excuse to talk about anything outdoor related, that's for sure.
Rock on, dude. Absolutely. I'm right there with you, which is probably why I do this show. Well, let's have you tell the audience a little bit about you, who you are. How would you sum it up? Who are you?
Oh, I'm Zach Hoheisel. I am a father of 2. I work with camera gear and stuff like that all day on social media, but that all came from the fact that I grew up just loving the outdoors, and when I was, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years old, probably like most kids like us, I wanted to get a job in the hunting industry, and the only thing I could think of was having a TV show. And now a lot of things have changed, but when I was younger, I started picking up a camera and messing around with it, learning how to film my hunts and do some photography and stuff like that, and I kind of ran with it, and now it's my job, even though my 9-to-5 job isn't necessarily in the outdoor industry, but I try to do as much as I can with my company Growing Wild that I started a little while ago, and I'm having a blast, man.
Having a blast. I'm glad that that's what you said, because too often we get a little too tangled up in this stuff, and it ends up at some point not being too fun, and suddenly having a blast becomes something that you're like, wait, why did I get into this? And to make that kind of the point and make sure that that's what's actually happening is a pretty big deal. Because it's a lot of work to do stuff like this on the side in addition to, right? It'd be like the equivalent of a mechanic turning wrenches all day and then getting home and turning more wrenches, right? So you really got to love it to be that way. Because you're doing this stuff for a living, right?
Yeah, for sure. So that's a great point you have. A lot of times when I was a little bit younger, I actually got discouraged by some people about, if you try to turn a passion into a job, it just ends up being a job instead of a passion. And I actually did get a little bit burned out maybe my sophomore year of college. I was actually working doing another kind of similar outdoor media company with a high school buddy of mine, and we were having tons of fun. I learned a bunch, but it got to be to this point where I felt just tons of pressure, like, oh man, I got this show, I gotta, prove myself, and I'd go out and have awesome hunts, but I wouldn't, kill a big buck or something, and I'd feel disappointed. And my dad kind of called me out one night and said, dude, I think you've kind of lost your way a little bit. You're doing this for the wrong reason. So I stepped away for a year, and I really missed the camera side of things. I love, recording my hunts and being able to go back and watch everything. So that's why I started growing wild, because I wanted it to be a little bit different of a show. It's not, even it's certainly not all about the kill, but it's also not even about the hunts. It's about family, friends, outdoors, having a good time, and um, just loving the lifestyle we have. And then I've also been lucky to have just recently got a job where I get to mess around with camera gear and edit pictures and videos all day as well. And it hasn't, I'm having a fun time doing it. It hasn't turned into just a job yet. I love going into work every day. I love what I do, so I'm pretty blessed.
That's super cool, man. It sounds like you have a real sense of like awareness around the fact that that is a lucky and good thing. I wouldn't say lucky. That's not probably not the right word. I'm sure you've worked hard to get to where you're at. I don't mean it that way, but yeah, man, you have to take a second to appreciate kind of what your surroundings look like. That's good that you have that awareness.
Yeah, man. I know, because I've had jobs that I don't like in the past, or I've been at worse places. So I try my best. It's everyone gets down every once in a while, but I try to do my best to realize how lucky I am. I got a good job, a beautiful family, and when that beautiful family lets me get away for a little bit, I get to enjoy the great outdoors here in Wisconsin. So
Yeah, hell yeah, man. And you're so you are from Wisconsin.
yep, I'm from the kind of the Fox Cities, Appleton area.
Rock on. That's a great area, man. It's a good area to be doing stuff outside for sure. And so, do you hunt public land or private land up there?
So I do a little bit of both. I guess there's two ways I really look at hunting. I'm really lucky that we have a family cabin, kind of near the Tigerton Wittenberg area. We just have a small 60-acre piece, but it's really the right 60. It's in a great location, and every year we manage to usually kill a couple good bucks off of there, and we certainly have a whole bunch of them running around. So I've fallen in love with the private land side of things, of you know doing food plots, running trail cameras, really managing the land,
Yeah.
and having a hand in that. But I also certainly love, there's something super special about the public land thing, where maybe you walk into a piece and you've never been there before, and kind of the mystery of it. And rather than manipulating the land to fit your hunt, you have to go in there and watch these deer do, or learn how these deer use the land naturally, because you're not allowed to do anything like that. And I've really fallen in love with both of those sides of the hunt.
Two totally different components, two different ways of hunting. Respect each. I tend to talk about public land hunting because that's all I know, because I don't hunt private. But I've said out loud plenty of times, if I had the chance, I'd be all over it, And I think I might actually this year. A buddy of mine might let me onto his property. We'll see. I don't know how good it'll be, but the thought of it makes me feel kind of excited. Like I might have at least one other place I could go in addition to all the other public spots. But I won't be doing any land management or food plots or anything. Maybe not out of the gate anyways. We'll see what he lets me get away with.
Yeah, they both definitely give a different aspect of the hunt. Like I said, I like a little bit of both. I don't get, in college I hunted a ton of public land. I probably hunted more than I went to school in college, but it's a little bit different now. It's a little bit different now with kids and stuff. I have a very limited amount of time, so when I do get away, I usually, as far as deer hunting goes, I tend to spend that little bit of time up at the cabin, where I've worked so hard, and then on those, when I just get one day, I tend to go to public land and try to kill some ducks or something like that.
Yeah, that's fun stuff, dude. Good deal. Well, let's maybe talk. I'll back up one more time before I dive head first into this. What are you, bow, gun, both? Doesn't matter. Do you like whitetail, turkey? What's I don't know. What do you seem to favor the most?
I like a good mix of everything. If there's an opportunity to get outside, I try to take it. I would say the thing I've done most in my life and that I'm most passionate about is bow hunting whitetails. But I do turkey hunt in the spring. I do pick up a rifle for the 9-day gun season. In the past, that's been, in Wisconsin, it's like a holiday. School's closed sometimes, and it's just crazy here. So I like to go up to the cabin for the camaraderie. We got a good group of guys that goes up, hangs out in our cabin in the middle of the woods, and we go out there and I prefer to go with my bow, but don't get me wrong. If something steps out when I got a gun in my hand, I love venison, and it doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. It's interesting. You get so many different types of hunters that prefer to do things certain ways. I just like hearing the differences in how people approach things. To me, that's part of why I like podcasting so much. It's just there's rooms for so many different ways of doing things. What I was hoping we could talk about today is maybe how you prep for bow season. Are there any kind of particular or ritualistic, maybe not ritualistic in a ritualistic kind of way, but things that you do that you can point to that, hey, this is what I do to get ready for the season, that listeners can really kind of value from, what or maybe take away from some of the things that you do.
Yeah, so on the private land side of things, during the summer, I really love, I run my trail cameras and I do a lot of food plotting as well. I've just seen such a benefit from that in the past, and it's really rewarding. I mean, when you put so much time and effort into something, and you get to watch it grow and turn into something that these, deer love to come into, it's a super rewarding progress. So in the summertime, whenever I can get away, I'm normally up at my cabin. I'll usually do a little bit of trout fishing because we got a nice trout stream that runs through our land and a couple that are close by. And then we have our traditional stands. We've been on that 60 acres for 20 years. My dad's had the place, so we kind of know the best areas, and we're constantly, things change, with different, crop rotations and stuff like that. But I'm, trimming stands out, hanging new stands, and then working really, really hard on the food plots. I got all my food plots in, and now I'm just praying for rain and hoping that they all, grow into the best thing they can be. And then, I'll check my trail cameras every couple of weeks, but now it's kind of, I still got to go trim a bunch of stands out, especially with that crazy windstorm we had. I'm sure our woods is a mess. I was actually up at the cabin when I was up at the cabin when that came through, and I was planning on trimming stands all day, but I ended up having to chainsaw all Saturday just to get out. We had like 8 or 9 huge trees that fell over the driveway, so we worked all day just to get out rather than putting in time trimming stands out. So that's still left on the list for this year. But after that, it's pretty much letting the woods and everything kind of calm down, let the trail cameras run, and we'll see if we got any target bucks to go after this year.
Good deal, man. It's a lot of work. I've heard that, and I say things like I've heard because I don't have the facts, but I've heard things like, when a storm like that blows through and it gets all these trees knocked down, deer love it. Like it does so much for the forest to come back to life because of all the browse and all the things that kind of get brought down to the, the floor level of the forest. Do you think that might have an advantage as the season kind of comes into swing here for you based on what you've seen, or?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because at first I was bummed because we had tons of trees down. And I was like, man, the woods are just going to be a mess. And all of our lanes, because we've had these stands and, a lot of the same places, we got our lanes pretty well cut, and it's just kind of going in and snipping a few limbs that may have grown into the lanes and whatnot. So now there's probably trees blown down in those lanes, but a lot of these trees were blown over but are still connected to the root system. So there's these, the tops of these trees are hanging on the floor, and these leaves are still getting enough nutrients to, produce leaves.
Oh, wow.
So all of those are, food sources for deer, but so that's, I guess, a benefit, and it creates some, thick and nasty. I'm sure that there'll be some new bedding areas or, depending on where these trees fell. So I think that could be a positive as well. But, it all depends on how you look at it, man. The woods might be a mess, and it might be harder to get into some stands, or I might have to do a little bit of work clearing new lanes. But I agree with you. I think that, if a tree falls over, they'll eat those leaves probably, and then, that lets a little bit of sunlight into the floor to create some new browse as well.
Yeah, dude, it'll make it really hard to fling an arrow through all those branches and things like that, and certainly it's going to be difficult seeing anything early season, but having a positive outlook, or always trying to take a positive approach to things. I'm probably one of the annoying people in my group of friends and family where they're like, can you just acknowledge what I said and not say positive things for a second? Like, oh, I don't know. No, I can't. This is how I am. That's exciting. So that gives you a way to kind of mix things up, look into the next season.
Yeah, for sure. I'm real excited to to check my cameras. There's a couple good deer that, as of right now, I haven't seen them yet this year, but I don't believe they got killed. We're pretty close with all our neighbors, so if they made it, there should be a couple pretty good ones to chase this year.
Oh yeah, man. So what else are you doing to prep? I mean, I know it sounds like you were going to go out and do some things, then you kind of got, I don't know, distracted, right? Unfortunately, so you had to deal with that other thing. Short of that, what are some traditional things that you think that you tend to do? I mean, there's certain things that I know that I do, and right now it's a mental game of mosquitoes. I was in my living room the other night, and I posted something on Instagram. There was like 1,000 mosquitoes right outside the window, and I was like, oh, that's right. This is what I hate about the early season. Like, how can I deal with this better, And that's where my mind is right now. That's about as far as I've gotten.
Yeah. So like I said, I mean, as far as at the cabin, the last thing left to do is go in, trim those lanes, and then let the woods quiet down. One of my favorite hunts of the year is that opening day of archery season afternoon hunt, just because I feel like these bucks are really susceptible to coming out into a food plot in daylight because they're just used to that summer pattern. People haven't been hunting them for a while. I actually just 2 days ago uploaded a video from something I'm doing right now with Growing Wild. Is I have all this footage from like the last 6 years of hunting. So I'm kind of revisiting some old stories and just explaining some of my favorite hunts. And just 2 days ago, I uploaded a video of my 2016 archery buck kill, and the story starts with opening day. I was hunting over one of my food plots, and I had a gorgeous 145 inch 10-pointer step out into my food plot right at last light. And so because I'm recording all my hunts, I have my camera on a tree arm, and I forgot to lock the fluid head in place. So I came to full draw on this deer, and I went back to look at my camera to make sure that it was in frame, and it was just slowly tipping toward the sky. So I let down, got the camera back on the deer, locked it into place, make sure everything was in focus, and I came to full draw again. And just because of all the commotion, I rushed a shot, and I ended up missing that deer, which would have been by far my biggest buck. And so that's where the story started. Luckily, later on in the season, I was able to get it done on another buck. But that opening day afternoon hunt is always fun for me. The last, I don't know, man, four years or so in a row that I've been doing food plots on opening night, I've seen shooter bucks. I just haven't gotten a shot off, or a successful shot off on one yet.
I watched part of that story because I was trying to kind of dig into some of your content. I skimmed through it because I'm doing a million things, right? But now that you're talking about it, I feel compelled to go back and watch it the whole way through.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I talked about this with, I think, Garrett Benner, the Modern Assassin, who was on a few episodes ago, that like recording my hunts is just something I haven't really been willing to do. And that's probably one of the biggest reasons right there is I already am Polish enough. My mom's side is Rakowski, right? So like it's Clark, you'd never know. And so for me, I always do things like the really hard way, and I learn everything the hard way. And that's just one other element or layer of things that I don't think that I could handle well enough. I have a hard enough time getting a deer without that going on. So my hat's off to you for trying to capture that stuff. And it sounds like it's not easy.
Yeah, I listened to that episode with Garrett. It was a great episode, but he's right, man. I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it sucks. Everything, you're carrying more gear into the woods. It takes longer to set up, and I can't tell you how many mornings I've thought, oh, man, I think I'm just going to go out and hunt without the camera because it'd be easier. But at the end of the day, even if I wasn't doing this Growing Wild thing, I would probably still do it because one of my favorite things is, I mean, how many times have you been out on a hunt and had a great hunt, and when you get back to your buddies and try to explain what you saw, you're like, when that deer came over that ridge, and they're like, this ridge, and it's the wrong one, and you're trying to explain everything. My favorite thing is just popping in the SD card and showing everyone everything and being able to, when I'm 50 years old, I'll be able to go back and watch my first deer kill with a bow, and I'm super excited about that, and I'm excited that, I get to share it with my family. As my son grows up, Granted, if he ever lets me record him, he always turns into a goofball when I bring the camera out. But
You
I'll
just point at him, he's like,
hopefully,
oh. That's great.
yeah,
Typical
I'll
7-year-old boy,
hopefully be
right?
able to, oh, yep. So hopefully, I'll be able to capture his first turkey hunts and his first. I've already got him. He did a walk along on a pheasant hunt with us, and every time I point the camera at him, he always kind of blows me off and he usually sticks his tongue out and walks the other way. But hopefully he'll, allow me to film him, and that'll just be so fun, to 20 years from now go back and watch some of these hunts.
Oh, dude, for sure. Like, so we were talking offline about, Gary Vaynerchuk, and he always talks about how cool it would be if, I today could have watched my grandparents or my great-grandparents. And part of this podcasting thing for me, it's really interesting that if my kids ever care to, I'm sure they'll think I'm the nerdiest person in the world and they think I'm stupid and old. But if they wanted to, they could go back and hear all of these different shows that I've done with different people and get a sense for who I am, right? And so, like, even my grandkids, they could go learn about, Grandpa Clark or whatever the heck. And I think that's kind of fascinating. And it goes both ways, right? So if you record him now at 7, when he's 20, he's going to look back and be like, man, was I a goofball? And it's really cool that you're doing what you're doing that way. And I think you're doing it for some very interesting reasons. I know we're deviating off of the prep for bow hunting a little bit, but when you have kids, it's a bit different. There's more that goes into it. It's not just about you, getting them prepared to have and setting them up for success so they're warm, they're comfortable, they're not going to hate their lives, right? Because their attention spans, especially today, is way, way low.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And there is, I'm starting to hunt for different reasons, and my son right now, he could take or leave hunting. He's a lot different than me. My dad used to, I'd beg my dad to take me to the woods, and I never realized how lucky I was that anytime I asked, pretty much he would let me go. And now that I'm, trying to tote along, I've been trying to take him since he was 5. I realized just how much harder and difficult it is to bring a kid along with you. And I always took that for granted. I never realized, the effort and the sacrifices he made to introduce me to this. But it was always just in my blood, and I loved it. And Jaden's not quite like that yet. He's, sometimes he's excited about it and into it, and other times he says, no, I don't want anything to do with it. So I'm still choosing between whether or not I kind of let him pick his path, because there's been a couple times where, I went out shed hunting and I basically forced him to go, and he threw a fit, but then when he was done, he said he had a blast. So I never know whether to, kind of let him be a kid and pick his own things, or if I should just make him do it, because, sometimes 7-year-olds have bad attitudes about everything.
Yeah, I'll have to cross that bridge when I get there. That is a tricky one. It's like kids don't want to do a lot of things. Then when you try to take them away from it, they're like, no, I don't want to go. It's like, what? You didn't want to come either. So, okay. That is a tough one.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. Okay, well, let's progress here and think about, are you shooting your bow frequently? Are you doing it with your broadheads on? Are you shooting it like from a stand, from sitting, from standing? Like, are you doing anything to mimic how you would be in the woods? Are you testing out tree stands, sticks, climbing gear, safety equipment, that kind of stuff? Or do you kind of wait on that? I know we're early, right? We're like just about to August. And so I feel like August 1 to September 1 is a time when people start to go, okay, let's start to pull up my gear and see what the heck I have going on from last season, right?
Yeah, man, I'm going to be the biggest hypocrite in the world right now. I think if you're, whether we like to admit it or not, going into the woods with a weapon and, choosing to fling an arrow and take a living animal's life is a pretty serious decision. So I think if we're going to do this, we should take it seriously and be practicing as much as we can so that we're as efficient as we can in the woods. But I'm not going to lie to you, man. I know we talked beforehand. We just had a baby 4 months ago.
Yep.
I have been slacking. Yeah, I've been slacking more than I ever have. I've barely been shooting. I certainly haven't been crawling up into tree stands like I should. I normally like to do that, but this is kind of I feel like, I just got a kick in the balls there, because I usually harp on people who don't practice enough, and now I'm feeling like a hypocrite. So I'm definitely going to start shooting more. And then as far as, like you said, practicing with sticks and stuff like that, one thing that I want to get more into is this mobile type of hunting. I don't have a mobile setup right now, like a tree sling or or what it was called, a
The
tree
saddle?
saddle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been debating between that or kind of like one of those lone wolf systems. I don't have one yet. I really want to get one because even on private land, sometimes when I'm at my cabin and I'm sitting in a pinch point, well, that action might be 50 yards away, and I'm kind of limited right now. So that's something I would like to do. And then my wife is looking to get a little bit into hunting, so I try to get some permission that's a little bit closer to home, and it's something where I would like to get more into that mobile style. So that's a totally, would be a totally new thing for me. I don't just time and money, man. There's never enough of either of it. I don't know how much I'll be able to put into that this year, but that's one of my goals for the next couple of years is to get better at the mobile type of hunting so that I have more options. And if I have a random Thursday night where I can get out with my wife, I want to be able to, both of us put our stands on our back and head into the woods. So that's a goal, like a long-term goal for the next couple of years, but I'll try to slowly build on that this season.
Well, that Lone Wolf custom gear one, the new one, you could put your kid right on that thing as it sits on your back.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that. That'd be pretty cool.
Him and Cody and Kurt Guy are at the shoot carrying each other around. Well, I think it was actually Cody carrying Kurt. I don't know that it could have gone the other way, and I don't know if Kurt's still in here or not. But I'm not ripping on you too much, Kurt. But I'm just saying, no, that's funny. It's interesting.
Yeah, man.
Oh, go ahead.
No, man. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, we should take a second and chat about what it's like. And I just like kind of pulling into different veins of thought, as we kind of navigate the topic as a whole. But being a parent and hunting, I know there's only a certain percentage of us, right? Like, they were all young once and could do what I call it OFP, own fucking program, just do whatever the hell you want. Which is what my 2-year-old does. She is OFP. This is funny how that works out, but because she's OFP, I can't be. And, you got to be with your family. You got to make sure that you're not, putting too much time in the woods. It's a balancing act. And on top of that, you have work, right? And this other stuff we call our passion, that we're doing on the side. And it's tough to balance all that, man, and to make time. So like, you have to make the time that you do have impactful. And so I guess maybe that's probably what I was hoping to get out of today's show in general is just when we talk about prepping for hunting season, what are the most critical and most important things short of shooting your bow all year round and practicing? I guess I'm not even sure, because how do you prioritize all of the things that have to go into a season?
Yeah, no, I totally know what you mean. Everything changes. We talked a little bit before the show, and so when I married my wife, I gained my son. He was 5 years old when we got married. And like I told you, I was a single college dude that was doing whatever I want. Hunting, I was blowing money down in Illinois. I had a lease down in Illinois and was hunting down there. I was probably hunting 5 to 6 days a week, and that drastically changes because it changes a lot when a wife comes into your life, but it changes even more when there's kids in the picture. So what I've been doing now is, like I said, when I go out, I try to make it count. So that opening afternoon sit, I don't care if it's 100 degrees, I'll be out there with a thermocell doing that, and then pretty much my strategy is, unless there's a huge cold front or a real good reason to try to take a day off and make it up to the cabin, I stay at home and let the woods sit and wait till November and kind of cash in all my brownie points with the wife. Nice. And I head up to the cabin during the rut. And that's kind of my strategy for bow hunting. But obviously I can't just sit around for a month or two and not do anything. So on those lesser days or days where I have free time, I'll go, chase deer on public land closer to my house. If I get a free afternoon or a morning, and then something I've gotten more and more into is waterfowl hunting. It's when I'm letting the cabin rest and kind of waiting for the rut. I'll go out and chase ducks or geese and try to scratch that itch that way. And then the way my land is set up, if you looked at an aerial map, there's like an 800-acre block of timber to the north and an 800 block of timber to the south, and then there's a skinny 60-acre sliver of timber along a creek in between the two. So if I sit in these traditional pinch points, all day for a couple days in a row, I'm gonna have an encounter. It's just making it count.
Yeah, that's a good way to make it count, dude. It's good that you can understand kind of where the movement's going to be too. I think right now I'm struggling with. I don't know where I'm going to hunt. Last year was pretty clear because I had access to a conservancy property. I got drawn through like a drawing, right? And it made a whole lot of sense. And this year, pending one of those drawings, I'm not entirely sure where I'm going to hunt. I have a lot of different places, that I could potentially go, and it's some of the same old, but trying to take what I've learned on a podcast by talking to almost 90 people now or whatever, and trying to figure out what can I apply to some of the other properties that I've hunted when I was younger, and go back and revisit some things.
Yeah, and that's a great thing about public land is that public land, anyone can go out there and hunt. But how old did you say your daughter was again?
She's gonna be 2 in September.
All right, so this is what you're gonna have to do. I did it; it worked like a charm. You gotta go out and do some aerial scouting and pick a couple properties. Actually, pick a bunch. Pick 20 properties that you think you'd like to hunt. Go out for a Saturday with your daughter. Walk up to the door with your daughter in a stroller or holding her or something. Knock on the door and ask for permission. I did that with my son, Jaden. I knocked on 8 doors and 6 of them said yes.
That has got to be the biggest nugget to come out of any podcast I've ever done. So anybody watching now on the live show, and then anybody listening when it's out in podcast land, pay attention, rewind, hit the 15-second backwards button, and let's scrub that back again and state you can use your baby or toddler to your advantage, or kid, to go knock on doors to get permission. You said you knocked on 8 doors and got 6.
Yeah, and
that's an 80% rate of success. Is
yep,
it not?
and I could not believe it.
That's incredible.
I cannot believe it. And if you need a borrow kid, find one. I'll loan you mine for the day, but you got to do it.
So my buddy Joel is watching. He just said, "Hell yeah, Joel, you got 2 beautiful daughters. I know what you're gonna be doing this weekend." And then, real quick, Joel asked a question. So he just sent me a text and said, "Can you ask Zach if he's got any weird traditions or rituals before hunting?" And so what he's getting at, our hunt camp, I think the 8 or 9 of us that go, we've discovered that when we wear vests, we get deer. And so now we all wear vests. It's the dumbest thing, but if we don't have our vest on, someone's going to ruin the hunt for the rest of us.
I'm not too. I used to be real superstitious. I'm not that superstitious anymore. So I don't have any kind of silly superstitions like that, or
any
things
goofy,
I got to
fun
do.
Things
but
that
I
your
always
group does, or I don't know. Well, I guess it's less superstitious than it is like a reason to blame someone for our problem in a funny way.
Yeah, I guess for deer camp we got a couple things like that. We have some we play cribbage, and we got a couple little things where, if you cut a certain card, or if you get knobs, you're guaranteed a big buck or something like that. But one thing I do before every single hunt, you talked about, I got a little bit of Polish in me as well, so I make a list and I make sure I have everything now, because I can't tell you how many times I've got up in my stand and realized I forgot the camera, I forgot my quiver, I forgot my release. So it's less superstition now and just making sure that I don't screw myself over and get out in the woods and forget something.
Yep. Boy, I'm gonna get shit for this one, but I forgot my gun in the woods on the way out one night. I got a buck, and then got back to the motel that we were staying at the time. It was a little shitty motel in Prairie du Chien, and grabbed my gun case. I'm like, oh, this feels pretty light. And the year prior, my dad had done the same thing, and I was like, shit, you got to be kidding me, because we gave him so much garbage for that. And then I did it, and I was like, oh no. And so of course went back to the woods, and I found exactly where it was where it was. But that was a silly, stupid thing.
I can't say I've done that, but there's been numerous times where I forgot the quiver, because I normally take it off after, if I go out for a morning hunt, and I go back to the cabin, I'll take my quiver off, shoot my bow, and then I'm kind of notorious for leaving the quiver on the table and heading out to the woods for the afternoon hunt.
I forgot my quiver once, so I've been there. I've done that. I forgot my release once. Been there, done that. So maybe I should take a page out of your playbook and just write some shit down too, and have an actual list that I check. It's unbelievable the things you can forget.
Yep.
So maybe
Oh
for the.
yeah. So two.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I mean, I'm not the sharpest bull in the bull drawer, but if you take two things away from me, it's knock on doors with little kids and make a list.
That's pretty good, dude. I can live with both of those, and those are both really easily executed on this end. I'm gonna look at a map tonight and be like, all right, this is where we're going. I'll just tell my wife I'm taking our daughter, and I'll be back in a couple hours. What are you doing? Knocking on weird people's doors.
Yeah.
What? Don't worry about it. I gotta figure it out. I got the plan. I got it written down. I have my list. That's perfect.
Yep.
I mean, even with, you could get real creepy and just go on X on them too and look up their last name and then stalk them on Facebook and figure out what they like and get real weird. And be like, what the? How did you know to bring me a signed Brewers jersey of, so and so? I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. I found it on the way here. They'll call the cops on me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I've heard of people doing that. It's pretty crazy, the lengths that some people will go to.
Well, a buddy of mine, he's back up north now. So he's from up north. He was down here while his wife went to college, and now they're back up north in some tiny town called Glenwood. And he would write handwritten letters to people. He would do the same thing. He'd find the spots he'd want, and they'd send him a letter, send him a letter, send him a letter. And every letter was different and unique to that person. It was handwritten, and at least I think it was. It may have been computer typed, but I'm pretty sure I remember him telling me that he would handwrite the letters. And he had some success with that. And even some success would be considered like someone responded and still said no, but at least he got a response where they're like, well, that was a great idea, but no. It's funny that people go to that trouble,
Yeah. Yeah, the thing that everyone's got their different ways, and the thing I've found that works best is if you can be, polite, but look almost like somewhat spontaneous. Like, I feel like people can sometimes be taken back if you feel like, that you've been creeping on them or doing, you looked up their address and this and that. Like, I try to play it like it was a spontaneous type of thing.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I walk up,
Beautiful property.
Start as, yeah, for sure. So, and I've had decent luck. The one, kind of bummer is, in this Appleton area, there's, it's pretty, there's not a whole bunch of country around here. You can get out into some decent stuff, but this area of the state isn't really known for, really, really big deer or anything like that. So I more do it for fun, and honestly, I've gotten more and more into this waterfowl hunting thing, and there's quite a few birds around here, but it's always nice, man. There's certainly, the more you can hunt, the more, the better, the more successful you be, the more options you have. It's been so much fun knowing, like, all right, I don't have to drive an hour and 15 minutes to my cabin. If I get off of work early on a day, I can go out and shoot some ducks or, hit up one of these properties and try to, stalk a deer or try to shoot one on the ground or something like that. It's just, the more options you have, the better.
Yeah, no, that's probably a lesson I think I learned maybe 3 or 4 years ago in doing all this, where I started every year to add more properties, public land properties, to my list of places that I could access. And that's changed how I do things quite a bit. And it's something that I'm proud of. Like, I get really proud of, I hunted 6 properties this year. I hunted 8 properties this year, right? And kind of building that up. And then the more of those I do, the bigger that book gets. Someone that's really good at this is Anthony Heller with Deer Vein. He is, super extremely organized about how he catalogs the properties that he's hunting and how he uses his trail cams and what he does with that information. It's insane the level that he takes it to. I'm not even sure how he does it, but he's been on the show in the past, and I've run into him a couple of times since then. And he puts out really great content and how to deal with that stuff. I could take a page out of his playbook too. I mean, there's so many great people to learn from, but for me, having those options is a big deal. I think hunting a new property in the morning just isn't an option because you're not going to see where you're going, and that's foolish, right? But if you can go sometime at night to a new property, and then now you have that for a morning sit sometime based on what's going on. And so as the weather conditions and wind and everything else starts to evolve and change, if you have these different options, now you know your different access points versus different properties, and it builds, as you start to do more stuff, you learn more and you can do more stuff.
Yeah, and the other thing is, so I got my cabin, and that's where I spend the vast majority of my time bow hunting. But the cool thing about having other properties is, if I want to go in and, try to do some, like, ground hunting or get into the bedding areas and I blow deer out of there, I don't care. I'll just move on to the next one. Whereas, if I went to my cabin and I blew some deer out, that's a big deal. I only have that 60 acres. I'm limited to that 60 acres, and if that's all I have, if I mess a hunt up or if my target buck goes nocturnal or something, it's super limiting. So the more options you have, the more time you can spend in the woods, ultimately the more successful you'll
So you're
be.
kind of sitting on that. So I've heard that too. So I have a cousin that he hunts public land like a maniac, and but then he's got his own private, land that he's purchased, and he's done food plots and everything like that. But same, like he will hunt it maybe once or twice, and he will wait and wait and wait and wait and wait until he knows it's rut from activity elsewhere, and then go kill his hitless buck. And so that's definitely a strategy that I've heard of from not only him but others, and obviously yourself too. So public land is great then if you have private land, so you can still get your fix and have your finger on the pulse of the season. So then you know when to hit your private property.
Yeah, for sure.
If I had private property, man, I'd be the dumbass going in there like every freaking day to the same damn spot because it'd be so comfortable. I'd be so happy to sit on something that's my own. And they'd be like, no, you're doing it wrong.
Yep.
I know. I don't care. It's mine.
that was me. That was us for years, man. We just every single weekend from September, 15th till gun season, we'd take every weekend off. We'd hunt morning and night, no matter what. And it's like, it wasn't until about 2 or 3 years ago that we're like, man, what are we doing? Like, we're in here every week, leaving scent during warm days when deer aren't moving. We're only seeing, doe. It's like, we gotta hunt this smarter. We got this land. We can't blow it out. So, when we started hunting less, we ended up being more successful. We've had a lot of luck in the last probably 5 years. I've killed 2 decent ones with my bow. My dad, we always joke about how he's got a golden horseshoe stuck up his ass because he bought the land, he pays the property taxes, and he does all that, but he lets me go out there and hang all the stands and sweat my balls off planting food plots, and he's killed 3 really good bucks now on opening day of bow season, and he's shot 2 other really good bucks in the last. So he missed 1 year where he missed
on the opener
in the last 6 years. So yeah, he's killed 3 good bucks. Like he's killed a 145-inch 12-pointer, a 138-inch 8-pointer, and then a 141-inch 8-pointer, all on opening day of bow season. And then he also killed a beautiful 9-pointer as well in the last 5 years with his bow. And that's all from hunting less but being smarter. And then he's also he killed a good one with a gun last year, and he killed another real big 160 11-pointer with his gun as well in one of those years too.
Damn, dude, that's crazy. I'm still trying to figure out how the hell I'd gut one on opening day because of the mosquitoes. I don't know that I'd have to call on my buddies and be like, you guys, I don't know. I need to blowtorch the freaking earth around me to deal with this.
No, man, if you got your hands in a gut pile of a 150, you wouldn't be thinking about the mosquitoes.
See, I hope that that's the case, and I've not experienced that yet. So I think that would be it, right? That is the thing that puts me across that threshold where it doesn't matter. One of the comments that just came in from Joel, what is Zach's stance on guys that do deer drives on public land? He says he can't stand it, but there's nothing he can do.
Yeah, man, I'm in the same boat. That's kind of the love-hate thing with public land. I certainly get annoyed if I'm hunting public land and someone walks by and I think they ruin my hunt, it's annoying. But at the end of the day, one of my biggest things is I want to see more people out there, or I try to not be selfish, because I'll normally throw a little fit, in the moment. But at the end of the day, one of my biggest goals with growing more is to try to introduce more people to this lifestyle. So if people are out there and they're taking advantage of public land just the same way I am, it's hard for me to get too upset, because I'm just happy to see they bought tags that go back into conservation. Hopefully they'll introduce their family. And at the end of the day, we need more hunters, man. We're a dying breed, and it won't take long before this, it's not a right, it's a privilege, and we need more people to understand that and get more people involved so that this lifestyle we love doesn't go away.
Well, I couldn't have said it better myself.
But yeah,
to Joel's point, go download the Where to Hunt app. and then you can try to all avoid everybody, right? If everyone had that app, we could just solve that problem and stay the hell away from everybody. I'll leave that as my plug for my own little app on the selfish plug section of this podcast, which I normally don't do.
Yeah.
But
So yes, Joel, that is extremely annoying. Yeah, that is extremely annoying. I'm there with you.
It is interesting though, like like you go way up north to Nicolay, and it's vast forest, right? And so it's totally a different world up there versus down here. You get small plots. I can't tell you how many guys I've walked up on, and I've heard a whistle from a tree stand, or guys that have come up to me and I've scared the shit out of them because they didn't see me sitting there and like, oh, I didn't see them. Like, yep. And so it can get crowded out there, but when you actually come face to face with some of these guys, it's nothing but smiles, man. Like, no one's really being out there to be a douchebag, I don't think. Like, if they are, they're the bad eggs, right? And they're the 1% or less than the 1%. But by and large, you run into that other guy or that other hunter, gal, whatever, and you're going to talk to him, right? Like the guy that I think I scared the crap out of once because he didn't see me. He was trying to find a deer that his son shot, He's like, did a doe run over here? I'm like, I saw him coming, and in my head, I'm like, God dang it, you're just going to keep coming, aren't you? You have no idea. And then I was like, well, this ought to be a really good commercial for a camel company. Like, not only can't the deer see me, no one else can either. But it ended up being a really pleasant conversation, and all that frustration, I was like, well, seriously, what would Jesus do, right? That's not the right thing. Be nice and just be nice to everybody out there. We're all out there for the same reason.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like you said, there's always going to be that 1% douchebag. But at the end of the day, if you can have a good conversation, who knows? You might get a hunting buddy that if you work together, you can tackle a piece of public ground together, and it'll be better for the both of you. And, maybe you can share some of your spots with him, and he'll share some of your spots with you. It's, that's really, it's hard because sometimes I want to be selfish. I want to keep things to myself.
Yes.
I want to get mad at someone if they, ruin my hunt. But at the end of the day, man, the more people in this, that take part in this that you can have on your side, you're going to have better luck. They might, if you're nice to someone and treat them well, you never know what you could get in return.
Absolutely, man. Well, tell me your most memorable hunt. Let's switch gears. This is one of my favorite parts of the show. I look forward to it. If you've been thinking about it, I'm excited to hear it, and I'll let you just tell your story, man.
Yeah. So, yeah, I have been thinking about that because I know that was coming. I'm having a real hard time picking between two. Do you mind if I share just two? The first one's really quick.
No, dude, yeah, please. Two's fine. It's hard to decide.
It's okay, so the first one is the story of the first, decent buck I shot. It was kind of a funny story. So it was opening day of gun season, and I had my duck gun with slugs in it, and that thing was I was like, all right, these deer are going to have to come within 40 yards because I couldn't get a decent pattern on it outside of that. So I was just a dumb high schooler, and I woke up late, I got into my stand, and I could almost see, and the second I sat down, these other, I'm assuming, young kids in this Jeep Cherokee. I was hunting, so I'm in a tree line. In front of me is it's 40 yards of an opening, and then there's a pine plantation. To the right of me is our creek, and to the left of me is a cornfield. And in that cornfield, this Jeep Cherokee was out there mudding, and it didn't have any muffler or nothing. I mean, that thing was so loud, and they were just tearing it up. And I'm like, oh, great. What kids are going to be out here at 6 in the morning doing this? And I thought my hunt was shot. So I'm watching this Jeep, and I turn my head into this opening that's in front of me that's got some kind of long CRP type grass. And there's this little 7-pointer that we had been passing all bow season, kind of a goofy looking little deer. And I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. I can't believe I saw that. So then I turn around and watch the Jeep again. And I turned my head back, and where that 7-pointer was standing, now there was a nice little 10-pointer.
Poof.
And
just like that. That's crazy.
Yeah, he just appeared. I was in the stand for 5 minutes because I got out there super late. I slept in, and it was just a bad deal. So I put my gun up and I shot, and he bounded 5 yards and stopped. So I missed him, and I shot again, and he dropped in his tracks, and I got him. So I'm down there, I'm looking at this deer, I'm like, I cannot believe this came together, and all of a sudden I hear boom, 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 5 shots go off from my dad, who was sitting maybe 100 yards away, just across the creek. So I'm about as far away on our land as you can be from the cabin, and I going back to that listing, I forgot my gutting knife, and being the I don't know if it was stupid or considered. I was like, I don't want to make 2 trips back and forth across land because we have 4 or 5 other guys hunting. Like, I'm just going to drag this deer back to the cabin. So I drug that deer basically
Fully loaded.
60 acres away to the, yep, fully loaded. And my dad comes up to me, and there's our cabin kind of sits up on a hill. So I drug it out of this pine thicket, and he sees me at the bottom of the hill. I see him standing on on the porch, and he's got his hands up in the air, and he's cheering for me. He's just so happy. He comes down, and he congratulates me on this deer. It's not a monster by any means. It's probably a 120-inch 10-pointer, maybe. And I said, was that you shooting? And he said, yeah, I got a decent one. And he really downplayed it. Like, he said, yeah, I got a good buck down. Like, we'll go get him later. So we walk up on his deer, and of course, he killed like a 160-inch 11-pointer that dwarfed my deer and made mine look small, going back to the whole horseshoe thing. But that was the first one because that was my first decent buck. My dad forgot some of his medicine, so we actually drove back to Appleton with the deer on the tailgate, one head on either side, and we stopped at every bar on the way home, just being big shots and talking to everyone. It was such a fun day, and I remember I just got my license, so I just got my learner's permit, so I could drive with my dad in the truck, and my dad had just bought a brand new truck, so I'm 16 years old driving this nice truck with 2 big bucks hanging out the back, and it was just one of the most fun days I've ever had. That's number one. And then number 2 is actually my hunt, the buck I killed last year with a bow, and it was one of the funnest hunts I've ever had, and also I learned a valuable lesson from it. So I kind of played that strategy that I told you about. I hunted opening day, September 28th, and then a couple days in October on, the right occasions. I saw a couple decent bucks, gave them a pass, and I was chasing this buck that I kind of nicknamed Titan. He was a super heavy, tight frame 10-pointer, and he had a huge, like 5-inch flyer that went straight back off of one of his G2s. He was a super cool deer. And then there was this other buck that I called Mini T because he looked like the same frame as Titan, just much smaller, and he didn't have a flyer yet. And I decided, this deer is not a shooter. So it was, I think, November 7th. I went out, and like I said, I banked 3 days, and I said I'm going to sit all day, and that's going to be pretty much it for my archery season. So I sat all day, and I didn't see a single deer until 4 o'clock. And this buck, Mini T, came chasing a doe right under my stand, and I gave him a pass. But for the next hour, I watched this buck put on a show. I watched him make a scrape. I watched him rub some trees. I watched him. He grunted. He snorted. He had all these super cool sounds. I've never seen anything like it. And then he walked up to another small pine tree and rubbed on it and snapped the branch off that got stuck in his antlers. Oh. And then he kind of went down to the creek and got a drink with the branch still stuck in his antlers and walked by me again at 18 yards with that branch sticking in his rack. And I just, I kind of swore not to shoot that deer because I knew it would be a real good one next year, but it was just the most exciting hunt I'd ever had. My heart was pumping, and I drew back and I drilled this deer at 18 yards. And he's not, at first, he wasn't the biggest buck, he wasn't exactly what I was going after, but the memory of that hunt and the experience I had was so much fun. And I kind of learned a valuable lesson that, the trophy isn't always in the size of it's in the story and the experience you had. And this may sound hypocritical, like moving forward, I'm going to kind of try to target that next age bracket of deer, like a 4-year-old, more mature buck. But you never know. I might take a couple steps back. If another buck that's that size comes in and makes my heart beat as hard as that buck did, I'm probably going to have to shoot it again because I have no regrets about it. It was tons of fun. He's on my wall right now as a Euro mount with that same branch. He died with that branch still stuck in his antlers.
Man, that's so cool. Both.
So that was tons of fun.
Those are both incredibly relatable stories, especially the first. I wonder, did the people in the Jeep stop to look, be like, whoa, there's people shooting guns around here?
I don't even know if I looked back at that Jeep actually. I don't remember anything after that. I just remember seeing this Jeep, tearing it up and being like, man, this is gonna ruin my hunt. And 5 minutes later, I'm standing next to my first, decent buck. So
That's crazy, dude.
yeah,
And the
it
fact
was
that you
tons
saw
of
the
fun.
7-pointer and then the next time you look back, it was a 10-pointer. Like, that's wild, man. What a great story, both of them. Especially the second two. Like, I think if people hunt more for meat and more for the age of the deer and less of the points, but don't get me wrong, like those racks, they ignite something in us when we see them. We're like, oh my god, And so it is what it
Yeah,
is, And but hunting for the experience, I hunt for adventure. That's what I say. I love the uncharted, untold adventures, and I think those are more indelible than just the blah 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 doing whatever. That's why I like hunting different properties. It excites me. Um, I always think seeing a deer is a bonus, seeing a buck is a bigger bonus, and then obviously getting something is the ultimate bonus. But everything else they're all bonus. They're all in addition to just the being out there. For me is enough to do it. But dude, those are both great stories. I'd love to see the picture too of the one with the antler or the stick in his antlers.
yeah, man. That whole video is I got the whole thing on film back to that. It's all up on YouTube. So unfortunately, the first story I told about the gun, the gun buck with my dad, that was before I started recording my hunts. But you see that deer. He was through some brush, so I didn't get the greatest video of him actually rubbing the tree, but you can see a tree shaking, and then you can see him walking into the creek with that branch in his antlers, and then he walks by 18 yards, and I smoked him, man. It was a perfect shot, and that was the other cool thing is I struggle bad with buck fever when I have a bow in my hand, man. I don't know what it is, but I've missed a couple deer. I unfortunately wounded a deer that just really tore me up, but this is the first. And then the buck I killed with a bow in 2016, I killed him, but I took a kind of a iffy shot. Hindsight being 2020, he was at 54 yards, and he had enough time to turn, and he actually took the arrow to his neck. So
Jeez.
this buck was yeah, so I mean, fortunately, he expired quickly, and that was a huge lesson learned for me. That I was really dove really deep into archery, and um, I was confident shooting at 50, 60 yards, but a living, breathing animal is a whole lot different than a target, and he had enough time to react. So I won't be doing that anymore. But this buck I killed last year was the first one that everything came together. It was a close shot, made a perfect shot. It was a clean kill. He died in seconds. I heard him die, and when I walked up on him, yeah, that branch was still stuck in his antlers.
That's super cool, man. I like it. Thanks for sharing those with us.
Yeah.
Well, how do people find the YouTube channel? How do they follow you on social? Where do they go to kind of join in on the adventure that you're creating and the stories that you're telling?
Yeah, so everything is Growing Wild TV. Instagram is growing_wild TV. YouTube, if you just search Growing Wild TV, same thing on Facebook. I do as much as I can. I've really been liking this whole kind of sharing some of my old stories. It's a little bit different of a format because it's just not like a straight video. When I do these more current, like what I'm doing this year, it'll be more of a straight video. But when I'm doing, recalling on these older memories and stories that have already happened, it's like I'm kind of telling a story, and I kind of just overlay some of the footage, and that's been a ton of fun. But yeah, I get a huge kick out of sharing my stories, and anyone that takes time to watch or listen, I certainly appreciate it.
Heck yeah, man. And same, I feel the same way. So for anybody listening, definitely want to go subscribe to. I think you're doing the right things for the right reasons, and it's going to be exciting to follow along. So thanks again, man, for taking time out of your busy schedule, being a dad and working hard and doing everything you're doing to just hang out on the Where to Hunt podcast. I appreciate every guest, and your stories were great. And thank you so much. And we got some great nuggets out of this one, I think.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Heck yeah, anytime.